Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Hello everyone, welcome to ForumIAS. I'm 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐴. In this video, we're going to have an analysis of the Hindu newspaper of today, that is 28th of September 2023. So these are the various articles and editorials that we're going to discuss today. So these two editorials are important from mains point of view, and these three are the articles which are important from prelims point of view. So let's get started. Here is our first editorial. So it is the G20 screen over Mazdoors and their rights. So as we know, first of all, we have to remember the membership of G20. So here we have 19 countries plus the EU, and recently we have an addition of African Union, that is a 55 member African Union. It was also added. So do remember these. And also we have been looking at lot of articles and editorials about this India's G20 presidency in the recent times. And we have also discussed about the New Delhi Declaration. So here, this particular editorial, so it is basically about the Mazdoors and their rights. So unfortunately, India missed a great opportunity to protect worker rights and advance the welfare of workers during the G20 summit, despite this G20's Labour 20, that is L20. So do remember, this L20 is Labour 20. So it is basically a coalition of G20 leaders who are concerned about workers. And as we know, in Arab and Gulf countries, we have an exploitative labor system known as kafala system. So this term is important, kafala system. So if you get a question like which of the following is correct regarding the kafala system, or the kafala system is related to so and so, in that way you can also expect a statement based question. So do remember, kafala system, it's basically a labor system, and it's an exploitative labor system which is followed in the Arab Gulf countries. So here what will happen is, the migrant workers, they are tied to their employers, so they cannot shift the job without their employers, so they are tied to their employers. So this is a kind of exploitation of labor that we can say. So what will happen is, because of this system, the migrant workers, they cannot leave the job, and also they cannot change the employers. So that will lead to a risk of forced labor and a modern day slavery. So if a person is working with one employer A, then he cannot easily shift to employer B. So he is tied to this employer A. So that will lead to a forced labor. He is forced to work with this person, and also this can be said as a form of modern day slavery. So this is what is our kafala system. It's a labor system, and this is followed especially in the Arab Gulf countries. Do remember this. And India, it is the world's largest migrant sending country. That means if you look at the entire world, in all the countries of the world, if we have one country which is sending the migrants the largest, so that is what is our country. So our country is the world's largest migrant sending country. We are sending the largest number of migrants to different parts of the world. So from our country, lot of people are going to other countries as migrants. So when we have a lot of migrants from our country, we have to definitely take care of the rights of these migrants and the workers, right? And if we see, there are an estimated 9 million people that are working in this exploitative conditions in the Arab Gulf. Especially in this Arab Gulf countries, we have this kafala system, and Indian government, it should have taken some opportunity to address this particular issue. When we have this G20 presidency, then India should have addressed this particular issue of this forced labor and this modern slavery, and especially about this kafala system in this Arab Gulf. Because we have almost 9 million Indians who are working under this exploitative working conditions. So we should have used this particular opportunity, but we have missed it, right? Even if you look at Saudi Arabia, it has almost like more than 2.5 million Indian workers. And as we know, Saudi Arabia, it's a permanent member of G20. So we would have pushed this particular issue. right? And we are the world's largest migrant sending country, so it is even more important for India to take care of these kind of issues where exploitation of Indian workers is going on. And as we know, this is not just limited to Arab Gulf. Our Indian workers, wherever they are working in different parts of the world, in different parts and different countries, we have this exploitation of Indian workers, not only in the Arab Gulf. So in India itself, if you see, workers in a number of industries, like we have textile industries, brick kilns, shrimp farming, copper manufacturing, etc. In these, we have forced labor and also modern day slavery is present, right? And also India has signed and ratified ILO's Forced Labor Convention. This is also known as C29. So do remember about this C29. India has already signed it, and also we have ratified this. This is by our International Labour Organization, ILO. So it's Forced Labor Convention, which is known as C29. India has signed it and also ratified it. So whenever we have some international conventions, you have to know whether India has signed it or not. So in case of C29, yes, India has signed it, and also it has ratified this Forced Labor Convention of International Labour Organization. So forced labor, basically it is different from exploitative working conditions. So both are different. So do remember this. Forced labor, it is different from substandard working conditions and exploitative working conditions, right? So this is what is about this particular article. So what has happened in this G20 and also about this exploitation of labor. So coming to our next editorial, this is regarding from women's reservation to gender equality. So recently we have discussed about a particular bill, that is women's reservation bill, which provides 1/3 of the seats which are reserved for women in legislative assemblies and also in the Lok Sabha, right? So in the state legislative assemblies as well as in the Lok Sabha, women are provided this reservation of 1/3 of the seats, and this bill was recently passed. And we have also discussed about various editorials on this, like what are the pros and cons of this particular bill, what should be done, what is the way forward, etc. So in this particular editorial, if you see, we have a lot of discussion on from women's reservation to gender equality. So how can we bring about a gender equality? So this is what is discussed in this particular editorial. So let's have a look at what are the various points that were discussed in this editorial. So we have some data from the Inter-Parliamentary Union. So this data, it shows that the share of women in parliament in India is around 15% only. So for example, in total, if we have 100 people in the parliament, only 15 are women. So remaining are men. So we have only 15% of women. So this is what is the share of women in parliament in India. So this is according to the data from this IPU. And if you look at the ranking of the countries, among 193 countries, India ranks 141 on this particular count. So that means if we look at the various countries of the world in their parliaments and all, if we have a comparison of the women members, so the percentage of women legislators that we have, then India ranks only 141 among 193 countries. And if you look at some other countries, like we have Pakistan, South Africa, Kenya, etc., these countries have a higher share of women representatives. You can use this as an example while writing your mains answers, right? So if we compare the share of women in parliament in different countries, if we compare with other countries like Pakistan, Kenya and South Africa, they have higher share of women representatives when compared with India, right? And this is what is our ranking, that is 141 out of 193 countries. And we have seen that over the last 27 years, lot of efforts have been made to pass to introduce this women's reservation bill in the parliament. And finally now it has been passed, and it provides 1/3 reservation for women in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. So we have to also remember regarding one more point regarding this particular bill. So this would be implemented from 2029 but not in 2024. And this is because of the delimitation exercise that has to be done. So because of this, after this delimitation exercise is done, then this reservation would be implemented from 2029 elections, but not in 2024. So though it has been passed in the year 2023, we are not going to implement it in the next year, but in the year 2029. So this is one more point that we have to remember, right? And reservation for women in elections to the local bodies in India, it has resulted in increasing their participation in governance. So in the local bodies like panchayats, when we are providing reservation for women in elections, so that led to increasing participation in governance. That means whatever governance that we have at the grassroots level, that is in the local bodies like panchayats, etc., there when we are providing reservation for women, this means that we are increasing the participation of women in governance. And representation of women to elected bodies, it must necessarily be seen by in the larger context of female labor force participation in India, which is less by any standards. And we also have a recent research from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, that is Time Use Survey, and it shows that 97 minutes were spent daily by men on unpaid domestic services for household members, and women spent 299 minutes. So we have this unpaid domestic services, right? So whoever household members we have, so for example, we have a family. In that family or in that household, we have lot of domestic services, right? So those domestic services which are provided by women, these are unpaid services. They are not paid for doing these domestic services. And if we look at the time that is spent by men and the time that is spent by women for this unpaid domestic service that is done for their own household members, then it is 97 minutes for men and it is 299 minutes for women. So this is one more point that we have to remember. This is about our women reservation and gender equality. And we have one important program by Tamil Nadu. So you have to also remember this. So Tamil Nadu, it has come up with a particular initiative. So let's have a look at that. We have to remember the name of that particular initiative. So it's Magalir Urimai Togai. So it was brought about by Tamil Nadu. So the government programs which recognize this unpaid labor done by women within households. So that is what is this scheme. So we have seen that we have unpaid labor that is done by women within the households. That means within the family, if a woman, especially if she is doing some domestic service, this is never paid, right? So it is a unpaid work that is seen to be by the people to be their responsibility, but they are not paid for this. So this unpaid work that we have, unpaid labor that is done by women within households, that is also recognized by a government program called Magalir Urimai Togai in Tamil Nadu. So this is basically to recognize and address this difference in the unpaid household labor. So what is this particular scheme? What would they do under this? It is a monthly cash transfer program. So under this Urimai Togai scheme, every month cash transfer would be done to women. So this is one more point that we have to remember. So this can be used as an example while writing your mains answers. So this is about this editorial. So our next article is Manipur government extends AFSPA in hill districts for 6 months. So we have to know about this Armed Forces Special Protection Act. So we have this Armed Forces Special Powers Act AFSPA, and Manipur government, it has recently extended it in hill districts for 6 months. So let's have a look at what is this AFSPA and why is it extended, etc. So basically this AFSPA, it is introduced back in 1958. So first thing that we have to remember regarding this Armed Forces Special Powers Act is it was introduced in the year 1958. So first of all, we'll look at this AFSPA and then we'll come back to this article so that it will be easy for you to understand, right? So it was introduced in the year 1958, and what does it confer? What is the Special Powers Act? So what happens is it will confer some special powers on the armed forces. So by the name itself we can understand this, right? So some special powers are bestowed upon our armed forces. So why is this done so? So this is to rein in suspects in areas which are declared as disturbed on account of like insurgent activities or any kind of threats that are present to that state. At that time, what will happen if that area is declared to be a disturbed area? Then these special powers are given to the armed forces, right? So what will happen with this Armed Forces Special Powers Act? What are those special powers? So it will allow any commissioned officer, warrant officer or non-commissioned officer. So for them, they can what is the special power that they have? They can fire upon or they can use force against any person who is acting in contravention of any law. So at that time, if a particular area is declared to be a disturbed area, there is a particular law that is present during that particular time. When AFSPA is declared, there is a law that is in force. And if they feel that a person is acting in contravention with the law, then these armed forces, these officers, they can fire upon that person or they can also use force against that particular person. And if they feel that that person is suspicious and some people are appearing suspicious for them, then they can even arrest them without any warrant, right? And also if they have any suspicion on any particular house, they can destroy any particular structure suspected to having this arms, or if they are giving shelter for this armed attacks and all, they can also conduct searches without any warrants, right? So if people are having some arms or explosives, if they have a suspicion on some people, they can arrest them, they can use force, and also they can fire upon them, and they can even search the houses of people, right? So these are the various special powers that are given to the armed forces. And sometimes there are also allegations that are present which says that these special powers are being misused. So there are also some allegations on the armed forces regarding this. So the disturbed area status under this act, it will remain applicable in all the hill districts which are dominated by tribal communities. So now I hope you are clear with this AFSPA Act and what are those special powers that are given to these armed forces. So now when a particular area is it is said to be a disturbed area, when it is given a disturbed area status under this act, then it will remain applicable in all these right now in this hill districts, which was recently extended in these hill districts for 6 months. However, since 2022, AFSPA has been gradually withdrawn from the valley districts which are dominated by this Metis community. So why was this withdrawn? Because there was a significant improvement in the security situation. When they feel that there is a threat to the security, etc., then they will declare this AFSPA. And when they see that there is an improvement in the people, when there is an improvement in that particular area in the security situation, then slowly they will withdraw that particular AFSPA. So that is what has happened in the valley districts. But in case of hill districts, it was extended to 6 months. And the issue of declaration of disturbed area status, it is very sensitive and it may likely attract public criticism and resistance if proper care is not taken. So first of all, they have to announce that a particular area is a disturbed area status. So whenever they are declaring that disturbed area status, they have to take care whether it is really a disturbed area or not. So all the criteria have to be looked at. Otherwise, public will definitely criticize that particular decision and also they will resist that particular decision. So utmost care has to be taken whenever they are declaring this disturbed area status. And this 1958 law, it gives power to the army and CAPF, that is our Central Armed Police Forces, deployed in this disturbed areas to kill anyone acting in contravention to the law. And as we have discussed, they can use force, they can arrest the people without warrant, and they can also search any premises without any warrant. And they'll also have protection from prosecution and legal suits without the union government's sanction. So these are the various special powers that are given to the armed forces under this AFSPA. So this is what you have to remember regarding this article. So coming to our next article, it is India aging elderly to make up 20% of population by 2050. So this is according to the report by UNFPA. So what is this UNFPA? It is United Nations Population Fund. So it says that India is aging, that is India's population is aging. So by the year 2050, what would happen in the entire population? Elderly people would be 20%. Right. So this is according to this particular report. So let's have a look at this report. So with the decadal growth rate of the elderly population of India estimated at 41%, that is decadal, that is for 10 years. So if you look at the growth rate in the 10 years, especially for the elderly population in India, it is estimated at 41%, and its share of the total population projected to double to over 20% by 2050. So whatever share of elderly people that we have in the total population, that is going to double by 2050. So this is according to our UNFPA report. And India, in its 2023 India Aging Report, it said that by 2046, it is likely that elderly population will have surpassed the population of children in the country. So for example, this is the total population that we have. So this is the population of elderly people and this is the population of children, that is below the age of 15 years. So these people, they will be more than these children by the year 2046 according to this India Aging Report. By 2046, what will happen is, if you look at the number of children that we have, that is under 15 years, and number of elderly people that we have, they will be more in number when compared to the children. And more than 40% of the elderly in India are poorest, while about 18.7% of them living without any income, and such levels of poverty, it may affect the quality of life and health care utilization. So what will happen is, we have one concept known as life expectancy. That means what would be the lifetime of the people. So how many years would a person live? So if you look at that life expectancy, it is different for men and also for women. And according to the reports, the life expectancy for men is less than women. So what will happen? Men will pass away sooner than women. So what will happen? We will have more number of people or women living as widows and as dependents. So dependents would definitely increase, especially female dependents would increase. And life expectancy of women at 60, it is greater than 20 years in states like Rajasthan, Haryana, etc. So what will happen? It will have more concerns about their social and economic well-being. So at that age, whatever wealth they have, they would have definitely already given it to their children and all. So their economic well-being is a question mark. So there would be definitely a challenge to their economic status and their social status. So they would have been facing some poverty issues, especially this would be a feminine poverty, right? So this is one thing that we have to remember. So for women and men, we have this life expectancy, which is different. And if you look at the sex ratio, that is number of females per 1,000 males. So among the elderly also, it has been increasing since 1991. So this ratio, that is sex ratio, which is number of females per 1,000 males, that is also slowly increasing. And if we look at between like 2011 and 2021, in these 10 years also, this ratio has increased in India as a whole, right? Except some union territories and Western India, mostly sex ratio has also increased. And this shows that the ratio of women has increased. So this is about our population report. So our last article for today is ultra long G6 to see good demand from insurers, pension funds and H2. So we are going to discuss about this particular article now. So what is this government securities? So we are going to look at what are these government securities. So India's first ever issuance of 50-year government bonds and 30-year green bonds. So we'll discuss what are these. You have to know about GSEC, that is government securities, and also we have to know about green bonds. So these can be easily absorbed by insurance firms and provident funds, which are keen and have been looking for avenues to park long-term funds. So these insurance firms and provident funds, they are actually looking for long-term funds. They are looking for various avenues. So where can we park our funds for a long time? So they're looking for such type of funds. And now India has issued first ever 50-year government bonds and 30-year green bonds. So long-term investors like insurers, they will have a natural demand for this 50-year paper. So what are these government securities? So these are basically low risk sovereign guaranteed bonds with assured interest paid every 6 months. So trading makes them liquid. So government securities have low risk. Why? Because this is by the government. So these are government securities. That is the reason why the risk is low, and also they will be having an assured interest. That means for sure they will be getting some interest amount every 6 months. And if we compare this with stocks and fixed deposits or FDs, stocks are very high risk things, and also they'll have volatile assets in which returns can definitely fluctuate. We may have profit or we may not have. So in that way, the returns can definitely fluctuate, and there is a high risk in case of stocks. And also FDs, they have assured returns but don't have guarantee over 5 lakh rupees. So compared with these, our government securities have low risk, and also these are sovereign guaranteed bonds, right? So these are the things that we have to remember in case of G-Secs or government securities. So what are these green bonds? So this is one more term that we have today, that is green bonds. So these are tax exempted bonds. So what are green bonds that we have? These are exempted from the tax. So these are tax exempted bonds, and they'll have fixed income debt instruments. So they can raise capital for environmentally focused products and also various projects. That is the reason why these are green bonds. So these are for environmentally focused projects. That is the reason why it is named as green bonds. And these are also known as climate bonds. So green bonds or climate bonds, so both are one and the same. Do remember this. So these are our green bonds and government securities, and this is the recent issue with these. That is the first ever issuance of 50-year government bonds and 30-year green bonds. So we have a look at some previous year questions. So we have discussed about Manipur extending this AFSPA for 6 more months in the held districts. So we have a previous year question back in 2015 in UPSC Mains, wherein we have this question: human rights activists constantly highlight the fact that this Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958 AFSPA, it's a draconian act leading to cases of human rights abuses by security forces. So as we have discussed, there are a lot of allegations also on the armed forces saying that whatever special powers that are bestowed upon them, they are being misused, and they are also leading to human rights abuses. So what sections of AFSPA are opposed by the activists? Critically evaluate the requirement with reference to the view held by the Apex Court. So you have to also know about the sections of AFSPA. So whenever you look at some previous year questions, you'll definitely get a view of how questions can be asked in the exam, and also you'll get to know about the pattern of the exam. So here if you see, you have to also go through these acts. Whenever we have some important acts in news, do go through the provisions of the act and try to remember some important sections of that particular act, so that whenever you have these kinds of questions, you can definitely write a strong answer citing some sections of that particular act, right? So we also have a previous prelims question on government bond yields. So we have seen about this G-Secs government securities and also green bonds or climate bonds. So in that view, we have this previous year question in 2021. Indian government bond yields are influenced by which of the following? So here we have actions of the US Federal Reserve, actions of the RBI, inflation and short-term interest rates. So here all of these are correct. So this is the previous year prelims question that we have, and this is one important mains question that we have. So that is all about the articles for today. So hope you have liked this video. Please do follow us on our social media channels, and if you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe to ForumIAS. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye-bye.